3 broken zips, 3 different mendings. So I have 3 invisible zips to change, and they are different ways of finishing it. I have a pair of trousers that just simply have the invisible zip, then I have a skirt with lining, and then I have a dress with lining, but it is all sewn on top as well, so it's the same invisible stitch but 3 different finishes. Let's start with the pair of trousers. The pair of trousers have the invisible zip sewn normally, and they have facings to support the waistline. So facings go on top, right sides together, on top of the zip as well. So you have to put it right sides in to put it wrong sides out, so you can see everything and start undoing the seams or ripping the seams. One tip, which is really simple, and that way you don't have doubts when doing it, is to take a video or to take pictures of the garment before you unsew anything. That way, when you're sewing back again, you have some reference of how it was and how you have to do it. I'm going to sew it right sides together. I'm going to place the zip on top and then open it to the outside, so the little teeth are facing out, and then once I put it right sides in, it's perfectly placed. And one thing is that I'm not going to be sewing the lining just yet, only the fabric on top. The facing on these trousers are top stitched, so I'm going to do the same first because the zip goes right in there. So then I can put it wrong sides out on top of the zip and sew it all along. And as always, I'm doing it with pins, but you can baste it as well if that makes you feel more comfortable and a bit safer when sewing. Well, the zip looks good, it's going up and down easily, so let's fix the skirt now. And the skirt has an invisible zip as well, so it's going to be more or less the same, but apart from facing, it has a lining. I've never sewn a lining for myself, but I think working from the inside is going to be fine. And now the same thing, I'm going to sew it right sides together. I'm going to place the zip on top and then open it to the outside, so the little teeth are facing out, and then once I put it right size in, it's perfectly placed. And one thing is that I'm not going to be sewing the lining just yet, only the fabric on top. Well, now I've checked that the zip is perfectly sewn on the outside, it's the inside time. And I'm going to not just turn it right size in, but pulling the lining out so I can sew in here. And now I'm going to change into a normal zip foot so I can finish the facing and the lining. And one thing is that I'm going to sew it only to the lining, not to the skirt as well. So it's not, well, I think it's better, and it's how it was. Remember to follow the steps you've done, but backwards. I mean, once you've unsewed the zip, you have to do the same things backwards. And with this, it's done. It's funny how sometimes, even though you've sewn a lot, because I should say that I've sewn a lot already, there are things you haven't done. For example, changing a zip with a lining. And it was just fine. It looks good. It's how it was. And I didn't have any problems at all. So give it a go. Don't be afraid and change one. So the dress is like a chiffon, and inside it has a lining that looks like a linen. And the zip, even though it's an invisible zip, is not sewn as an invisible zip. It's just sewn like in between the two layers of fabric. So I'm not going to use the invisible zip foot, just the normal foot, and then just case it in there. So let's start unsewing the zip. And because I have two different fabrics, I have the chiffon and this one that is a bit more sturdy, I'm going to do it on the inside, on the rougher fabric, on the stronger fabric, so I don't rip the chiffon. It's something that can happen, accidents happen, especially if you're using the seam ripper, which I'm a bit afraid of. I was using it, but I just switched to the little embroidery scissors. So just in case any accidents happen, just be aware of the fabrics you are doing, and that is better to go with the harder fabric, with the stiffer one, or the lining one, going on the inside so you don't ruin the garment. And now I'm going to just pin it right in there, case it in there, and sew it where I can see on the same place the other stitches were, and that's it. Should be easy. And with this the dress is made. It's quite a simple mending because the zip is cased in these little flaps, so it's quite easy. You just have to place it in, pin it, and just sew with the normal zip foot. And it's quite rewarding because you do it in nothing, in 5 minutes. The only thing I don't know why is why they used an invisible zip for something that is not sewn as an invisible zip wool. So I don't know. I did it the same. I could have done it properly with the invisible foot and putting the fabric in, but I wasn't sure if I was going to change the size a little bit. So I just did it the same. Do you think you will change the size? I think so, because even though you have the seam allowance, maybe you take it in a little bit. So I wasn't sure, so I did it the same. I think it looks fine, and the inside as well. So that's lovely. And what about you? Do you usually mend? I love mending stuff because you give it a second chance, a second life. And for example, this blouse I'm wearing, it used to be longer sleeve, but the fabric had rip, the Guipour had the rip because of the usage. So I cut the sleeve off. I think it looks lovely and I can still use it because I really like this little blouse. So I'll leave you a link here to all the mending videos I've done so you can have a look. Maybe you have something you don't know how to mend, and I did something similar that can be useful. So give it a look and I'll see you around next week. Bye. Hola, hola, hola.